Don't mind me in my bedhead. Honestly, I'm okay with it because that just means that I finally got some sleep after that basically 62-hour bender of me just recording and editing Dark Souls 3 videos to get that series wrapped up. Anyways, here we are. Today we are going to be ranking the Dark Souls 3 areas. We've done this at the end of the other Dark Souls games, so I figured we'd go ahead and just keep up the tradition and rank the Dark Souls 3 areas now. One thing I will note, you'll see all these areas like Dark Souls 1 and 2. Don't worry, we're not going to be ranking the other Souls game areas. We're just going to be ranking Dark Souls 3. This is just the one I chose because this one has all of them labeled, and I'm too stupid to know what area it is just based off of like one screenshot. Also, one last thing, I apologize for the weird camera angle. That's literally the only place that I can set up the camera until I can afford like an actual webcam for my computer, so I apologize about that. But anyways, right off the rip, we have Cemetery of Ash, and honestly, this may sound crazy, but I kind of want to put it in S tier. Out of all the tutorial areas and Souls games that I've seen thus far, do I really want to say it's my favorite? Look, when it comes to Dark Souls 1, obviously that one's always going to be S tier, and man, it's really tempting to say that Dark Souls 3 passes it though. Like, it does a really good job. It doesn't waste your time. You get in, it gives you like all of the notes laid out, it tells you all the controls, it gives you enemies to test it on accordingly, and then obviously you get to the boss fight with Index Gundyr, or however you say his name, and it is honestly one of the best boss fights in the game, even though it's literally the first, even if it is just supposed to be a tutorial boss. Like, this one honestly whooped my ass the first time I went through. Somehow I beat him first try, and I'll never understand how I clutched that. There was not even a pixel of HP in that bar, but hey, at least I made it. Next up, we have Firelink Shrine. Again, this is gonna go S tier. It's basically just Firelink Shrine from DS1. It looks a little different, or at least it seems like it's laid out a little bit differently. I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, maybe it's just because it's inside of like a giant building, but man, the music here is just top tier. Honestly, it's hard for me to decide whether I like the default Firelink Shrine music here in DS3, or if I like it more after you give the Eyes of the Firekeeper to the level up chick. Because initially, the score that it has, it gives you that nice homey feeling that all of the other Dark Souls hub worlds did, like Majula and the Firelink Shrine in DS1. But after you give the Eyes of the Firekeeper to her, it gets this really weird, I don't know, it feels like intense. Music is such a hard thing to describe for me because it's like, it's all emotion based, but I tell you, like, every time I hear it, it's just like, I know some big shit is about to happen. And it does. After this point, you're towards the end of the game, and once you nail that bonfire and the score swells, like, dude, nothing can match that feeling. And then immediately after being teleported to kill into the first flame, like, ugh. Next up, we have Untended Graves. This one is gonna go A tier just because it basically is the same thing as Cemetery of Ash, except aesthetically it doesn't look as good. However, the Champion Gundyr fight was very good. That kicked my ass. So we get to A tier for that. Any boss that can kick my ass deserves at least an A tier, as long as it's, you know, not for bullshit reasons like Bed of Chaos. Eyewall of Lothric is probably gonna go A tier for me. It's a really good, just beginner area. You know, it's kind of like the Undead Burg of this game, if you will. It's pretty simple. It's still kind of in that tutorial zone where there's just enough enemies to kind of help the player get to grips with the game if this is their first Souls game. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe High Wall of Lothric is also home to not only Vort of the Boreal Valley, but also Dancer of the Boreal Valley, and if that's the case, then it definitely deserves the A spot. Vort is a pretty good early game boss that kind of tells the player, hey, if you're coming from DS1 or DS2 or blocking with some viable, you're gonna be fucked in this game. You gotta learn to dodge. Personally, I'm kind of against the mindset of everybody that's like, oh, you need to dodge in this game. Like, you don't need to, dude. I've seen people take down Soul Cinder with like Havel's Great Shield. It just depends on what shield you're using and what playstyle you're going for. You can make anything work in these games. There's not a single playstyle that is wrong or incorrect if you can beat the boss. If it's in the game, it was meant to be used. But I will definitely say learning to dodge is the better way to do it. Consume King's Garden. Oh god, I literally just beat the game and I can't even remember what was here. Let me do a little Google check real quick. Oh, this area had Osiris. Oh god, Osiris was so cool. Like, I don't even know his lore implications, but just from the little bit that I got from that cutscene, I can already say that that's easily A tier. Dude, that cutscene was so freaking good. The thing that I love about Dark Souls is the story. It's like, it's not all up in your face. It's very open-ended, it's very cryptic, and that remains true here. You don't really know a whole lot about what's going on with Osiris besides the fact that he thinks he's like holding a baby or something, but he's not holding shit. As he's talking throughout the fight, and as the music starts going, like, it's an epic freaking fight. There's a few things that render like a Dark Souls boss being either A or S tier for me, and it comes down to basically like all of the fundamentals. What is the score / OST like for example, Soul of Cinder. For me, that's an S tier boss easily, which I just kind of spoiled it, so let's go ahead and rank that one. Killing of the First Flame is easily an S tier for me. The Soul of Cinder boss fight, it is my ideal boss fight. What I look for in a fight is a good score / OST, like I said, good spectacle, like how cinematic is it. For example, in Dark Souls 2, one of my favorite fights, is the Looking Glass Knight because it just sticks out in my mind so well. It was such a good fight. And then beyond that, how is it difficulty-wise? Like, for example, for me, personally, a boss like Nameless King, I really can't get behind something like that. I know once you learn him, he's not that bad, but like right off the rip, it's one of those bosses where I feel like it's just a little too much. I like a boss like Soul Cinder. He's quick, he's nimble, he's on his feet. You gotta be like pinpoint with your dodges, but he's not absolute bullshit. Once you learn him, like, you know, you can get through it pretty easily. Because his attacks don't do a crazy amount of damage compared to some bosses like Nameless King that can literally like two-tap your ass. It's just challenging enough without being absolute bullshit. And while I don't believe that there's too many bullshit bosses in the Dark Souls series, especially not Dark Souls 3, there's no boss that I can really call bullshit. There's just a few like Nameless King that are like, okay, come on, it's just a little bit too much. But I understand and I respect the challenge, and I can admit, yeah, I just need to get good and get it over with at some point. And then finally, like, the lore. Like, what's the lore to it, you know what I mean? And with Soul of Cinder, it's really hard to top that level of lore, so that goes S tier for me. Undead Settlement, this one is gonna go B tier for me. From what I remember, not a whole lot happened here, right? There was the area outside that gave me heavy Bloodborne vibes with them all kind of like crowded around the center, and then I believe that the Cursed Rod of Greatwood was here. Maybe I'm wrong about that. It's an okay area. Not terrible, but also not like outstanding. Road to Sacrifices, probably gonna go B again. Nothing too memorable here. I mean, it has the Butcher's Knife, which that carried me through literally the whole game up until the Soul of Cinder, and I could have easily taken out Soul of Cinder if I would have kept trying with the Butcher's Knife, but I'm just not that good at the game. I ended up resorting to Fug. Baron Keep, you're gonna go C, maybe even F, because I fucking hate swamps. I understand why they're there. It's been explained to me in the comments before why they're there, but I'll never like swamp areas. Something that punishes you for moving, I just can't get behind. I know it's purple moss clumps, and you can roll through it, go a little bit faster, yada yada yada. I don't care what your defense is for it, I just personally hate swamp areas. This is all my opinion. Cathedral of the Deep is gonna go B for me because originally it was gonna be a C. I thought this area was like way too big, way too confusing, but now that I know it, now that I know the layout, I think it's pretty cool. The only thing keeping it from going any higher, which you guys know me, it's a cathedral and I love my cathedral aesthetic, so I want to put it higher. But the boss fight is just not good. Deacons of the Deep, that was an absolute joke. It was like the Royal Rat Vanguard, except, you know, there wasn't a bunch of bullshit statues blocking me, so it was a bit more bearable for sure. However, I do respect it for being a different type of boss. This is one of those bosses that's more like a puzzle boss. In my opinion, I feel like bosses like these are just meant to be more fun than actually challenging. So I'll leave it at B, because it's not necessarily bad. It's just, you know, it's nothing special compared to the other things in this game. Catacombs of Carthus, did this even have a boss? I'm gonna put it C, I don't know, rats, skeletons, big bullshit balls that come and crush your face. I don't know. I don't really like this area. I didn't like the catacombs in DS1. Didn't really like them here either. High Lord Wolnir, yeah, that's a fucking gimmick boss. I mean, does it really deserve to go any higher? I mean, aesthetically, the boss is really cool, and just for that, I kind of want to... I'll leave it in B just because whoever was like in charge of the art direction that day, they blew it out of the water with High Lord Wolnir. Like, that boss aesthetically is insane. So for that alone, like, that deserves some props, some GGs. They did a really good job there, but ooh, if it didn't look as good, I would put it C. Smoldering Lake is gonna go C. C. I'm gonna put it C only because it has Fugs, but besides Fugs, the big explosive things that get like shot at you just for running through the lake. You got the giant spiky dildo snake that blocks you before you get to Old Demon King. He's not too hard to avoid. The thing is just annoying because it blocks my path, and then, I don't know, it's an okay area. You got the people spamming pyromancy down at the bottom too. You gotta kill like literally every single one of them if you want to have any chance of getting through, but even then you're gonna have all the other pyromancy guys that are surrounding you shooting at you the whole time, so it's just a nightmare. But again, it has fog, so it'll go C. Irithyll of the Boreal Valley. Oh my god, this... I think I want to put it S. Aesthetically, it looks amazing. The enemies, they're challenging, but they're not absolute bullshit once you learn them and you learn how to take care of them. Pontiff is an excellent boss. It is super challenging, so hard. The lore for the place is amazing. The lore for the boss is amazing. The score for the boss is amazing. Just the aura of this area in general. There's a lot of good item pickups here. I don't have too many complaints about it. For a first-time player, I could totally see some players not liking this area. I know I definitely did not, but now that I'm reflecting on it, I honestly love this area to death, especially the boss. It was just, it deserves the S tier, in my humble opinion. Church of Yorshka, was I here? Maybe? Oh, God, See, when I fly through these Souls games, sometimes I kind of forget what I literally just played, so I gotta do a bunch of these Google searches. Did this area not have a boss? I'm not seeing anything, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was really much to this area anyway, so for that, I guess it'll go B. I don't remember there being anything here, but it wasn't particularly bad, so It'll stay in B, I guess. In Orlando, it has to go A tier just because it doesn't have Ornstein and Smo. Aesthetically, it still looks great, and it's, you know, it's literally in Orlando, so how could you not love it? But obviously, it's not the entirety of Anne Orlando, and it doesn't have the magical feeling of the original, if that makes sense. You know, in the original Anne Orlando, you get there, it's so bright, it's open, like, you're able to breathe. It's not these tight, claustrophobic hallways and corridors anymore. It's just this big, open castle area. It was honestly magical being carried there for the first time, but returning to there in DS3, it really just kind of banks on nostalgia, and if you didn't even play DS1 before this, you're just gonna be like, oh, it's another big castle area. It's kind of cool, I guess. At least that's how I'd see it. Aldrich Fight was cool, but nothing special. It'll stay in A just because it is in Orlando, but Eartha Dungeon's gonna go C. Do I put it F? See, at least Smoldering Lake had thugs to, you know, save it. Man, Eartha Dungeon, I almost want to put it in F. I really did not like this area. Like, it was just, I don't even think this area had any bosses. It just had those annoying jailer guys that would like steal all your health. It was an annoying area more than anything. I mean, traversing it was cool, and I kind of like the whole dungeon aesthetic. It just sucks that so many like annoying enemies were down here. I know it's, you know, skill issue, get good, but fuck that. For Fane Capital, this is probably going to be controversial, but it's going to go S tier for me for not only the aesthetic of the place, but the boss fight. Are you kidding me? Yorm was such a sick boss, even though it was easy as hell. You can't tell me it wasn't absolutely badass, like charging up that sword and blasting like full-on tornadoes at that fool. It was such a sick fight. Lothric Castle is gonna go S tier for me. It was a great area. Love the castle aesthetic as always, and the boss fight was pretty sick. I'm pretty sure this area had Dragon Slayer armor as well as the Twin Princes. The Dragon Slayer armor, it was pretty cool. I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be like kind of a callback to Ornstein, because obviously like Dragon Slayer, and it kind of had like the same looking armor set. So I mean, that fight was cool. First try, I almost got him down, then I was like, yeah, I learned his movesets. I'm gonna call in a summon just to be safe. So it was a decent boss fight. It wasn't too challenging, but the Twin Princes, it's a little challenging at first, but once you learn how to cheese it, it's not that bad. But for what it is, this area literally has 2 bosses, and the 2 bosses that it has are quite respectable, and they're quite good in my opinion, so I think it deserves the S tier. I just realized I accidentally ranked the wrong kiln of the first flame. There's one specifically here labeled for DS3, so we'll put that up there, and then get rid of the DS1 one. Grand Archives are gonna go B. It's definitely not as bad as Smoldering Lake, but the Crystal Sages and all the mage people and the wax, it gets annoying. I don't know if Grand Archives had any bosses. I'm really blanking on this one. If it did, please let me know, but for now, just because the enemies in the area can be a little annoying, I'm gonna leave it in B. I'm just gonna go ahead and rank the areas that I did not visit. So Painted World of Ariendel, the Ring City, and the Dreg Heap. I believe those are the only areas that I did not visit in the game. And finally, Archdragon Peak. I believe both Ancient Wyvern, which is obviously just like a gimmick joke fight where you just have to plunge attack him and then all of his health goes away, but I believe this is also home to Nameless King, and just for that, it gets the S tier. If it just had the Ancient Wyvern, it would definitely be like, I don't know, probably still A tier because aesthetically the place is absolutely beautiful. But the boss is a joke, and Nameless King, well, that speaks for itself. That fight is literally legendary. In fact, that is the only boss in Dark Souls 3 I did not beat yet. I beat every single boss in the game except for Nameless King, and I made sure after the credits to set it back so that I would not be taken to New Game Plus, and I would just be taken back into the current game playthrough that I'm in, if that makes sense. So it's not New Game Plus difficulty, it's just like normal game difficulty, because I do want to spec up a bit and try to take on Nameless King again. But anyways, as always, this is my tier list, so now I want to hear from you guys down in the comments. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to hear from you guys. And also, you probably noticed on this video's thumbnail, usually I have that face where I'm like real excited looking at it, but for this one, I just went with that thumbnail because, you know, the areas in this game, they're not bad by any means, but the game is so linear that I don't really feel like the focus is on the areas, if that makes sense. You're just kind of, you're pushing through the story. You're pushing through the epic journey, just battling the enemies, getting to the end. At least that's how I looked at it. I'm probably entirely wrong about that, but that's just how I saw it. I just kind of looked at this as the journey. You're just pushing through the areas, getting to the next boss, trying to get to the Soul Ascender, and then going with whatever ending you chose. But for all those areas on that journey, oh yeah, they were totally memorable. They were totally sick. And aside from a few exceptions, there was no area in this game that I would like genuinely dread going back to. Like, I love basically every single area in this game. I just feel like in terms of like super memorable levels where I just distinctly see it and map it out in my mind, Dark Souls 1 still takes the cake on that, but this game is definitely a close second. Dark Souls 2 had some cool areas, but there's just so many BS ones that one still ranks lower than DS3 for me personally. But anyways, yeah, that's that. As always, a shout out to the patrons, Karma's Fave Grandma, Low Booty Tab, Big Daddy Matty, Desperado, Chalupasaurus Rex, and Razak. I just wrapped up the DS3 series, so if you want to go watch that, I have all of my Dark Souls series in like a playlist on my channel. They're just labeled as like Dark Souls, the respective number, and then that blind playthrough. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. And remember, don't go hollow. Peace.